Hi, hello, and welcome to or welcome back to Lily's Library. So today we're going to be ranking every single book I read in 2025. So I read a total of 59 books, so we're just going to get straight into this because there is a lot to get through. So starting out with how I'm going to kind of like break down this tier list. So S tier is going to be like my most favorite books of the year. These aren't necessarily all 5-star reads. I will get into the one that's on this list that's not a 5-star, but these are the ones that I still think about, ones that are incredible, that I love, and that were just perfection, or almost perfection in one case. Then A is going to be ones that are 5-star reads or ones that I really, really loved. They're just not my all-time favorite. B is going to be ones that I enjoyed and thought were really fun and good, but they were just lacking something that didn't quite make them any higher. C is going to be my like kind of average ones. They're the ones that I found to be fine, enjoyable, but nothing special. And then D is going to be the worst books that I've read this year. I don't think there was too many of them. We had a pretty good reading year overall, so we're just going to see how we go. So I did try to organize this in order and put all the book covers in order, but it didn't quite work out. I think a few of them got jumbled up, so we're just going to go in order of the books that are here. So first up, we have got A Power Unbound by Freya Marske. This was the very first book I read. This is the third and final book in the Broken Bindings trilogy. I thought this was fine. It was honestly nothing special. It was a lot better than the second book, which was A Restless Truth, but I still think I've found the first Marvelous Light to be the best out of all of them. These are kind of like historical fantasy romances. They're all very queer and really fun. I did love the dynamic of the pairing in this final book, but it just wasn't my all-time favorite. So for that reasoning, it's just gonna go into C. Okay, next is Girl Falling. This I listened to an audiobook. This is by Hayley Scrivener, I believe, and I found this to be really fun. I'm not really a mystery fan, but I had a really good time with this. This was a bit unexpected. It's got a really beautiful setting. This is set in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, which is just a gorgeous area that I've always wanted to visit. But we kind of follow a girl whose girlfriend ends up dying when they're on a hiking thing. I think it's her girlfriend. And it kind of jumps between different times as we retell the story of what happened and also explore kind of what's going on now. I thought this was really good. It wasn't my favorite, but it was still a really standout book of the year, and I'd definitely be interested in checking out more from the author. So I think I'm going to put it in B. I don't think it has to go in C, the same as A Power Unbound. Then next up, Assassin's Apprentice, one of my all-time favorite books of the year. This is honestly going to be really difficult to rank all of the Robin Hobb books. I think just because it was the first one, it's going to have to go in S tier, just because it was absolutely incredible. I cried so many times. It was beautiful. It was heartbreaking. It just introduced me to these characters that I now so deeply treasure that I think it just has to go into S tier for that reasoning. Okay, next up is Water Moon. This is by Samantha Soto Yambao. At first, I really, really enjoyed this. This is a very fun and sweet and whimsical book. It's very much, a lot of people say it's very much for Studio Ghibli fans, and that setting very much does relate to a lot of Studio Ghibli films. It just really lacks the depth, I think, that are in Ghibli and what Ghibli is known for. That being said, it was still really solid and really cute, and a book I had a really fun time reading, so I think it's also going to go into B. Next up is Hammerjing Luck. I really was disappointed by this. I wanted to love this, but this is a sci-fi heist book. It's got a really diverse and queer cast of characters, which I absolutely loved, but I think just the pacing of it is really what needed work. It was quite underdeveloped. I think we spent too much time focusing on gathering the characters and planning out the heist compared to actually being in the heist itself. But for a debut, it was really solid, and I would be intrigued to read more by the author. I know that they do have a new book coming out very soon, so I will be giving them another go. This one just didn't personally work for me. So I think because of that, it is going to go into C. Next up is Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. This is a short horror book. This is really disturbing and gross and horrifying. I know the author said that she kind of wrote it because of Hannibal, which really makes a lot of sense. I haven't seen it, but from what I know about Hannibal, it's very much like that. It also kind of gave me Killing Stalking vibes in a way, but not to the same degree. But in this we follow two different women. We specifically focus on one's POV. She has just been broken up with by her fiance or boyfriend or whatever, and has moved to a new town and is starting a job as a teacher at a local university, and ends up going to the farmer's market one day and meets this woman who sells these really good cupcakes, and she keeps going back to buy these cupcakes, and it's about their relationship that really forms and the toxic obsession that grows there and the really dark twist at the end. It is really horrifying and really fun, and the more I'm talking about it more now, the more I kind of love it. I think I'm going to put this in B as well, just because it is something that I think about every now and then, especially the ending terrifying. It was just disturbing but beautiful at the same time. Next up is The Sword of Kaigan by Emma Wang. This one is going in S tier. I did not rate this 5 stars, but I'm putting it in S tier because of one specific fight scene in this. If you have read the book, you will know what I'm talking about, but it is this really beautiful and intense and heartbreaking fight between the two parents of the book, and some of the stuff that happens, it is just absolutely incredible and insane, and this book actually made me sob so much as well. Absolutely, it needs to be an S tier. Okay, next up we've got Crocodile Tears. This is by Ali K. Mulford. This is one of the Prickle Island Zoo books. I think so far this is one of my least favorite. I still think it was really fun, and I'm so glad we got a demisexual character in it. I just wasn't the biggest fan of the pairing. I'm never really that much of a fan of childhood friends to lovers kind of thing. Like, I know they had the falling out, so it was nice seeing them explore that again, but it's just not my favorite trope and kind of dynamic, but I still found it to be really fun. I think I'm going to put it in B. I feel like we're going to end up with a lot of books in B, but I think that's just where it deserves, like where it sits well. Okay, next up we've got Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I read 3 different Ali Hazelwood books this in 2025. This is a sports romance one. It's about swimming and diving. I found this to be fun. It's really not my favorite Ali Hazelwood. A lot of people said it was very, very spicy and like the most spicy book ever from Ali, which I think people are, I don't agree with that. Like, Bride's pretty out there, but people are weird. But I thought this was pretty solid. Not my favorite from the author, like I said, but it's not my least favorite, so I think this one is going to go in C as well. Next up, we've got Salt Slow by Julia Armfield. This is a short story collection. Our Wives Under the Sea was one of my favorite books I read in 2024, and Salt Slow was really good as well. It's not as good as Our Wives Under the Sea, but I think the collection overall was really, really solid. There were some really standout ones. There were a few that aren't as good, but overall, I had a really great experience with this. They're very weird and queer as well, which I absolutely love. So I think this is also going to go into B. Next up, we've got Royal Assassin, which was one of my favorite books of the year. This made me cry so much, and I just absolutely loved the journey that we went on with Fitz and the Fool in this. So I think this one is going into S as well. Okay, next we've got Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This was my first book from Hannah that I read, and I really loved this. I cried a few times. I thought it was so cute and sweet and fun, and I'm usually not a fan of the pregnancy trope, but I think this was done really well and really tastefully, and it was just super sweet and hilarious. So I think this has to go in A just because I really, really enjoyed it. Next, we got Blood Over Brighthaven by Emma Wang. I read both of her books last year, and I really enjoyed this. I have very mixed feelings on it, but just because of the way that the main character is, she's very racist and classist, and even though she herself is the victim of prejudice and is excluded from a lot of things, she still did that to other people. But it was really interesting seeing the growth and the change of her throughout this book. This is a really fascinating dark academia. It's very interesting, and I think a lot of people will like it, but I think I'm going to put it in A because I did rate it really highly and I had a really good time with it, and it did make me a bit sad as well, and it's just such a cool magic system, but it's not S tier. Then the next book I read is a sci-fi, and that is The Seep by Chana Porter. This is a really interesting take on kind of like an alien invasion. It's as if like the aliens come down and invade and stuff, and I think it controls people through their water, like through the water system and stuff. So if they drink water, they're infected. It's something like that. I don't remember exactly, but there's like people that can kind of just like change how they look, and it looks a lot about the main character, who is a trans woman, and how she kind of feels with some of her friends being able to just change their appearance on whim, whereas before she had to fight so much to be able to be who she is. I thought that was a really fascinating part of it. And then we also kind of follow her as she is trying to track down her wife, who decides to be reborn as a baby for some reason, and it's just a really weird and unique alien book, and something like, it's literally something like I've never read before. It's so fascinating, but I think I'm going to put it on B. It fell a little bit short of 5 stars for me. Something just didn't hit, but it is so fascinating and unique. Okay, next up is To Sway a Bard. This was from like one of those Amazon KU short story collections or like novella collections. I do want to read some other ones from this collection, but I really didn't like this one. This is a bard and the like crown prince, who's actually maybe like a police officer or something. He's trying to track her down because she's like this renowned thief and has been hired to steal something from this other place and could outbreak a war. I just found like this was quite underdeveloped. Novellas are notoriously hard because they are very limited pages, but I think this just didn't work. So honestly, I think I'm going to put it in D because it was one of my lowest rated books of the year. It's not that I hated it, I just really didn't vibe with it, and it just didn't work out. Next, we've got Vanishing World by Sayaka Murata. I've read all of Sayaka Murata's books that are currently translated into English, and I think this is definitely one of my least favorites. It is very disturbing at the end of it. The end of it was not at all what I expected, and it kind of ruined ruined it for me. It was just quite gross, and I was not a fan of what happened. It's a very interesting concept overall. It's about this area called Eden where couples can go and both men and women can be inseminated, and no one is kind of the father or the mother or anything. So they all kind of raise the babies as a whole community, and no one knows who the parents are, and it's not really about being a parent yourself. It's about working as a village. Like, everyone in that town is a mother and stuff like that, and it's all their job all together to kind of help the babies, which is really interesting. I think it's also fun to read an MPreg book, but this just wasn't my favorite. The ending really ruined it for me. It was really quite gross. If you do want to read this, I definitely recommend checking the trigger warnings. That has to do with a lot of Murata's books. They're just they're just a lot. But I think I'm conflicted now between B and C for this one. I feel like I gotta go with B just because it pops into my head every now and then and it just grosses me out. Okay, next up we have got a non-fiction book. I think this was the only non-fiction book I read, and that is The Eyes of Gaza. This is by Plestia Alucard, and this was a harrowing read. This was such a beautiful and thought-provoking and just really, like, it was kind of hopeful, but does come to Australia and is talking to other people still back there. And I found it really fascinating, especially from a journalist's point of view, because she was working in the media there. This is a very important book that I think everyone should read. This is definitely S tier. Moving on, we've got a fantasy mystery. This is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This was something I really enjoyed at the beginning, but I've heard a few things about the author that's kind of rubbed me the wrong way, a few Zionist things that he's put out. So it's just kind of like brought down my opinion of the book, and it's not really anything that I stand for, so I don't really want to support him. I think I'm going to put it C just because it's kind of ruined my experience now with the author, and I don't really feel like reading anything else from him. Next up was The River Has Roots. This is by Amal El-Motar, who is one of the co-authors of This Is How You Lose the Time War, which is one of my favorite books, and this book was beautiful. It's so whimsical and fun, and it's a very fairy tale story. It's very queer as well, and just such a fun and sweet and short little read. I think I'm going to put this one in A tier just because I really had a good time with it, and I still think about it every now and then, and it's got these really beautiful illustrations throughout. But this one, it kind of follows two different sisters. They're from this family that live on an area where there's these trees that kind of are responsible for their magic and stuff, and the family members, it's their job to kind of sing to the trees and thank them for these powers. And one of the sisters is being sold off or being forced into this marriage with this guy that is from a very wealthy family that lives next door, and they basically want to marry into this family so that they can have those trees and that magic. And we kind of follow it as this journey chops and changes, and one of the sisters disappears and the other one has to hunt for them, and it is just so fun and cute, and I loved it so much. Next, we've got Out of the Woods by Hannah Bottom Young. I didn't like this as much as Out on a Limb. I thought it was still fun, and it was really interesting exploring a couple that has been together for so long. I found that to be really quite refreshing in romance, at least from what I've read. I've never seen one where it is about a couple that is substantiated and we follow them as they do deal with very real conflicts as being a couple that's been together forever. So I just found that to be really fun and sweet. So I'm going to put this in B. It wasn't my favorite, but I still had a really good time with it. I found it to be very realistic, and I could relate to a few of the struggles and everything. Then we've got Assassin's Quest. This is the third and final book in the Farseer trilogy. I really loved this. This was so good. It was a really nice conclusion. I think the other two books were a little better, but I still did rate this one 5 stars. And so for that reason, it's going to go into A tier. So I'm going to rank the next 3 together, but I don't know if I'm going to put them all in the same tier, but I read all 3 volumes of the guy she was interested in. Wasn't a guy at all. This is a Yuri manga. It's really cute and fun and really sweet, and I loved how much one of the characters just wanted to hype them up and was so obsessed with them being together. It's also very queer normative and accepting, which I just absolutely loved. So I think I'm going to rate the first one S tier and then the other 3 in A tier. Not for any reason really, just that I think I'm only going to put one, but like they're all there together, but I just don't want to overload it. It makes sense to me, but I'm just going to scatter these between the 3 different ones. Okay, next up is You Had Me at Ola. This is a romance book. This is set in the kind of like drama and TV world, which I find to be really fun. This was a really cute pairing. It's between 2 actors who have an on-screen relationship and they end up kind of falling in love off-screen as well. And I found it to be really sweet and fun, and I loved the concept of it being a TV drama and kind of one of the actors also having a background in telenovelas. I found that to be just really fun and sweet, and this is a trilogy I definitely want to continue reading with, but I'm going to put it in B tier because it was fun, but it's not a standout romance to me. Okay, next up we've got A Guest in the House, which is a graphic novel. This was really interesting and beautiful. I loved the art style for it, but the ending was a little bit confusing and a little bit just blah, I guess. I don't really know how to put it into words, but this was pretty solid, pretty fine, so I think that's going to go into B tier as well. Next up is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V. Schwab. This is their newest release, and unfortunately this really didn't work for me. I just found it to be really disappointing. I wanted to love it. I thought the concept was so interesting, and I'd loved V. Schwab's previous vampiric work, which was First Kill. I thought that was really cute and fun, but this just wasn't it for me. It's very much a character study, but it was kind of very lackluster. The most interesting character of the three of them we lost in the final chunk of the book. We just never went back to her perspective, and I think she was the most compelling one, and we should have got more of her, especially with what was going on and that kind of change in her. The ending was absolutely unhinged and so toxic and insane that I did not expect it, but it was just disappointing for me, so I think it's gonna have to go into C. I still did have a good time with it, but it just wasn't it, sadly, but I absolutely do adore V. Schwab's writing, and this is not gonna make me stop reading their books anytime soon. It just, unfortunately, was not it for me. Next up, we've got Flight of the Fallen by Hannah Lee. This is the sequel to Road to Ruin, which was one of my favorite books in the previous year, and I had a really good time. This was a very, very solid sequel and conclusion to this duology. It's very fun, and I loved the way that the romance and the relationship grew and changed, and the characters. There were a few infuriating moments, but this one is just going to go into B as well because it was very solid overall. Okay, our B bit is getting very chunky now. Next up is The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. This is book one in the Live Ship Traders. This was not my favorite out of the trilogy. It took me a long time to read. Like, these are all 900-page books in this trilogy, and there are so many POVs that it just was really a big jump going from the Farseer trilogy into this. So I think this is one that's going to go into B. It was really, really solid and a really good introduction, but it was just quite confusing and quite a lot to wrap my head around to begin with. Okay, next up is The Roommate Risk by Talia Hibbert. This is a little short romance. I found this to be really fun and cute and sweet. There was some very interesting spicy scenes, very unexpected ones as well, but this is about two people that have been friends for a while, and they kind of became friends because they first slept together, and then they became friends after that, and he's always been in love with her, but she doesn't date people. She just doesn't date really at all, and it's kind of following them as she has to move in with him and live with him because of something that happened at her rental, and it's following them as they kind of grow this relationship and as she starts to trust him and to trust being in a relationship. It's really sweet and fun, but not my favorite, so I think it has to go into C just because it was solid, but there's just something missing from it that didn't make me love it more. Next up is Red Tempest Brother by H.M. Long. This is the third and final book in the Winter Sea trilogy. I absolutely adored Darkwater Daughter, but then Black Tide Sun, the sequel, was really, really bad. This one definitely did fix a lot of things. Like, Black Tide Sun is a very big Red Tempest Brother is a big improvement on Black Tide Sun, but it's just nowhere near as good as Darkwater Daughter. So I think this has got to go into C as well, because yeah, like I said, while it was an improvement on book two, there were still some things that it just didn't really work with me, and I feel like it just kind of felt a bit... It was just a disappointing end to the trilogy. Okay, so I accidentally put some things in the wrong order, but we're going to put Ship of Magic in B and Mad Ship in A, because Ship of Magic was a big, or the Mad Ship was a big improvement over Ship of Magic. I think it definitely, I got my head around it a lot more, and I loved the way that the characters were and the exploration and growth of everything. So I think that definitely is A, and Ship of Magic is B. Next up, we've got Ever Blessed. This is by Olivia O'Flynn. This is an Australian fantasy debut. This is very much steeped in mythology. We've got sapphic romances in it as well, and then an arranged marriage too. We've got witches and gods and very powerful and strong women, and I found this to be a very solid fantasy debut. It wasn't my favorite just because I'm not always gravitating towards romantasy nowadays, but it was still a really solid one, and I think a lot of people will really love this, especially if you are maybe wanting to get into more romantasy or have been dying for romantasy with a sapphic plotline. This is book one in a series that will be continuing in the near future. So this one is going to go into C. Next up, we have got Problematic Summer Romance, which was another Ali Hazelwood book I read. This is the age gap one. I'm very conflicted on this. I thought it was fun and sweet. I didn't mind the pairing and the kind of banter that they had going on. I thought it was entertaining, and it's like a brother's best friend and his younger sister, so it kind of fits the dynamic. I just wasn't really a big fan of like the kinks in it. It's just not my thing. I don't like reading kinks, and that was like a main thing, and I don't like how quickly they seem to get married. Spoilers for the end there, sorry, but this is definitely going to be a B tier book. Okay, next up is Ship of Destiny, the third and the final book in the live ship traders. This was my only 5-star read from this trilogy. It was such an infuriating but like kind of good ending to it as well. There was points where I literally wanted to throw my book because of some of the things that the characters did, and I think because of that reason it has to be S tier, especially with what some of the characters went through. The whole trilogy is just infuriating in the best way. Like I've said before with Robin Hobb's books, she is just so good at writing her characters, especially the antagonists and villains, because they are so real and so fleshed out, and you can almost always see their thought process and understand why they do what they do, whether you agree with it or not. But some of the things that happened in Ship of Destiny were just so infuriating and so heartbreaking that I think it has to go in S tier because it was just absolutely wild. Okay, next up we've got another manga volume, and that is The Apothecary Diaries Volume 1. I found this to be so fun and so cute. I really enjoy it. I love the anime. I watched it for the first time in 2025 and decided to start reading the manga. I think I'm going to take a break from the manga in 2026 and start the light novels, but I'm going to put both volumes into A tier. So I only read volume 1 and 2, so we're going to put them both up into A tier because I think that's where they kind of deserve to go. They're really fun, but not like super standout volumes individually. Then we've got Curses and Cold Brew. This is by Ali K. Mulford and E.L. Morrison, I think it is, or L. Morrison. This is the sequel to Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist, which I really loved, and I had high hopes for this one, but it just didn't work out entirely. This is set in a Halloween town where there are monsters that actually roam about all year round, but obviously the town pops off for tourists in Halloween because I think everyone in the town is dressing up. But in this we've got a witch and a vampire. No, we've got a witch and a demon, and they're kind of together because the witch has made a deal with the demon to help with stuff in book 1, and we kind of follow them as stuff is going on and souls are being collected, but not by this demon. I found it to be really interesting, but a little disappointing. Just I didn't really connect to anything, so I think for that reason it has to go into C. Then the next book is one of my all-time favorite reads from the year, and that was Until the Red Leaves Fall by Ali Parker. I know this is immediately going into S tier. This was one of my top 5 reads of the year, but this is a historical fiction set in 1950s Melbourne in the theatre world. It's sapphic, it's queer, it's got a found family, it's very much Yellowface as well. It's very similar to that. It's got the most satisfying ending ever. It is just absolutely incredible. It also looks about what it meant to be Japanese Australian during this time period, as well as the internment camps that a lot of Japanese people and non-Japanese people were sent to following the events of Pearl Harbor. It's a very interesting look at that time period in Australia, and I honestly didn't know anything about those camps until I read Ali's book. It's something in Australia's past that is not talked about a lot, along with a lot of the dark things in Australia's history. So I found it to be such a fascinating and interesting read. Next up, we have got The Last Tiger. This is a fictionalized version of the two authors, their grandparents' story and kind of how they met. It's very interesting. It looks at kind of Japan's occupation of Korea and the killing of all of the tigers and a fantasized version of what that looks like and why they were doing it. I found this to be a really solid YA. I read this when I was actually in Japan and Korea, and I just found that it really was a very interesting book to be reading at that time, but I thought it was cute. I'm a bit unsure whether I put it in B or C because I haven't been loving YA lately, but I think I might put it in C because I've definitely got other YA books that I loved a lot more that I think deserve that place a little bit more than The Last Tiger. So the next one on this list is Hunchback. This is a really interesting and thought-provoking read. It's very short as well. This is translated from Japanese, and in this we follow a woman who lives with a congenital muscle disorder and lives in a assisted care home basically full-time. She's quite young as well and has been living with this condition her entire life. And we kind of follow her as she explores her sexuality and like bodily freedom through fiction. She writes a lot of erotica, and then one day she gets this worker who's in the facility to help impregnate her, and it's really interesting and has a very fascinating discussion on the autonomy of women, specifically disabled women, and the rights that they should have with that. It's very fascinating and thought-provoking and really makes you realize your privilege at being someone that is able-bodied, but I think I'm going to put this in A tier. It was just absolutely amazing and such a thought-provoking read. Okay, next next up, we have got Ghost Cities by Xiang Lu. This was one of my first books from this author. I'm definitely going to be reading everything else he does. I need to go back and read his first book, but I absolutely adored this. I think this is going to go into A as well. It was just so good. Okay, next up is Fool's Errand, which is the first book in the Tawny Man trilogy. I really enjoyed this. I thought this was a really solid introduction to this new trilogy and really expanded upon the things that had happened previously. I think it was really well paced and structured as well. I really had an overall good time with this. It was very, very sad as well. I kind of expected what happened. I kind of expected that what actually happened was going to happen, and I'm very happy in the way that Hobb did it. It was done and handled very well for being such a sad and sensitive topic. So I think this one is going to go into A tier because it was good, but not my favorite out of the trilogy. Then I'm just going to continue and get the rest of this trilogy done. We have got Golden Fool, which is the second book, and this is my most disappointing read from the Farseer books so far this year, or from all of the Realm of the Eldlings books, sorry. But I just found this to be a bit all over the place. The pacing was very slow. It was just kind of fits messing up a lot of his relationships with people and just not actually fixing things and thinking before he speaks, and it was just quite underwhelming. So I think it's gonna honestly have to go into C, just because nothing really stood out to me that much. There were a few really sad things, but it was really just a middle book that kind of felt a bit pointless. I feel like we maybe could have made this a duology instead, but it was still what it is. Then finally, we've got Fool's Fate, which is the third and final book in this trilogy, and I think this is going to go into A or S as well. I did really enjoy this. I think this was really sad and bittersweet. It's definitely not my favorite book overall from the Realm of the Elderlings. I think this isn't my favorite trilogy overall, but I think it was still a very solid and good conclusion to what we had. Then we've got a reread, which was She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. I'm going to put this straight into A. This was not a 5-star book, but I definitely enjoyed it a lot more the second time around. I listened to this on audio. I just had a better appreciation for the character work and the structure and everything overall. So queer, so fun, a really interesting exploration of a fantasized version of historical China. I found it to be really interesting, and I'm very excited to read the next book and conclude the duology. Then we've got Eternal Ruin by Tigges Germer. This is the sequel to Immortal Dark. I found the sequel to be a little bit lackluster compared to the first book. It just felt like it was really like a middle book and bridging a gap, but it was really interesting the way we did grow and explore, and the ending was absolutely shocking and not at all what I expected. But I think this is going to go into B because I did really enjoy it, but it was not a favorite, and it's definitely a bit better than C tier. Then we've got The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This was the first classic I read in 2025, and I enjoyed this. I thought it was really fun. A lot of the short stories were really good. Some of them were a bit average as well. I found the ending and the reveal of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde to be a little bit underwhelming, but I thought it was really good as well, and I loved the gothic elements of it. But I think I'm going to put this into C, just because it didn't really stand out to me and I don't really think about it anymore. Then we've got Nana Volume 1. I'm just going to put this straight into C. I thought this was good and a really nice introduction, but I just don't think the manga itself is for me. I think I'd rather watch the anime. But this is about two girls named Nana, and we follow them as they're kind of on the journey, or before they're going to Tokyo, and the things that are going to be taking them to Tokyo. I would definitely be more interested in watching the anime than reading the manga. Next, we've got Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed. I absolutely adored the TV show, but I wasn't the biggest fan of the book. I found the writing to be quite basic and a little bit just like simple and underdeveloped at times, and I think there was honestly too much spice in it, and that we didn't really get enough of the characters themselves. I think the TV show definitely does a better job at expanding upon everything, so I'm going to put this into C. Okay, next up we've got Mate by Ali Hazelwood. This one is going straight into D. I absolutely hated this. It's the worst Ali Hazelwood book I've read since Love on the Brain, I think. It was just so underwhelming and so messy, and the plot was nonsensical, and it was all just telling you what was going on rather than showing you. I hated the dynamic between the two characters. I hated the male character. He was just a misogynistic pig. And the main conflict of this book was that the main character was in heat, and they thought she was actually going to die. Like, multiple doctors, we're doctors as well, told her she was going to die. I don't know why they just didn't think about her going into heat first. Like, I know she's a human-were hybrid, but it just didn't make sense. I just feel like it was just really infuriating. Like, yes, it might be a really good example of how women's health is treated and how people listen, like doctors listen to women's health issues, but I just hated this book. I found it to be so bad, especially compared to Bride. Next up, we've got another classic, and that is Lady Susan. This is also going to go into C. This is told through different letters to different people talking about Lady Susan or about Lady Susan herself when she's writing about her experiences. This was very messy and entertaining and fun, but just a little bit confusing. Then we've got Every Heart a Doorway. I really enjoyed this. This is a very short fantasy book. This is like a 9-10 book series, I think even more, but it is about these children who have been to different realms and different worlds, and they all end up getting put into this sort of school together, and there's different schools for whether the kids want to go back to the worlds that they were trapped in or whether they never want to go back. And it's really interesting, really queer as well. This was also a murder mystery because some of the students kept getting killed off. It was really fun and sweet, and I really enjoyed it. Next up, we've got The Spear Cuts Through Water. I'm a bit uncertain on where I'm going to place this. I had a few issues with it, but I think the issues were more on me. The story structure of this is very interesting. It's kind of told through a play, but not quite a play, and it takes a while for everything to kind of click together and make sense. I think this is something I do really need to reread, because when I was really into it, I was enjoying it, but it was just a bit confusing for me as well. I think just it wasn't the year for me to read it. I think because of how I was going with work and life, it just wasn't the time for me to be reading these confusing books. So I think, unfortunately, it has to go into C. But yeah, but I don't. Okay, I'm actually going to change it. I'm going to put it into B, and I think I'm going to put it into B. Yeah, I think that works. Then we've got They Bloom at Night. This is a YA horror. This is a body horror. It's really gross and disturbing. It has weird things happening in a body of water, which I absolutely love. That's one of my favorite forms of horror. I think I'm going to put this one into A as well. This wasn't a 5-star read, but I really loved it. I loved the discussions of gender and gender expression and identity, and it was just a really fun interpretation of that and look at that, and it was very sad as well. And I loved the elements of Vietnamese like folklore and Vietnamese creatures in this. I found it to just be really fascinating. Then we've got People Watching by Hannah Bonham Young. I think I'm going to put this into B as well, so put it in there with Out of the Woods. I found this to be really fun and cute. This is Hannah's newest book. It's a small town romance. It's very fun and sweet and just very heartbreaking as well. It's just really cute. I don't really have too much else to say about it besides that. Not my favorite Hannah book, but I still really enjoyed it. Then we have got 50 Beasts to Break Your Heart and Other Stories. This is by Jenna Rose Nethercott, who is the author of Fizzlefoot. I'm putting this one into B, into A, I think, actually. I really enjoyed this overall. The first story was one of my favorites. It very much reminded me of Welcome to Night Vale. Quite a few of them did, but these are really fun and weird short stories. They're very fantastical and very like fairy tale vibes. So if you love that kind of stuff, I think you'll really like these. We've got lots of queer ones as well. It's just a very fun and unique short story collection, and overall they were all really good. There was a few that I didn't really vibe with, but a lot of them were really fascinating. So we've only got 2 books left. The next one is Fable for the End of the World. This is by Ava Reid. I enjoy this. It's not my favorite Ava Reid, but I thought it was really fun. This is a dystopian. It's kind of very Hunger Games-esque. We've got children who are usually from poorer families that are either sold into or volunteered into to get their family's money to go into this program where they're hunted by an angel, and we kind of follow our 2 main characters that they're trying to take down and escape this system. It's very much a commentary as well on the American medical system, and that's something that really inspired Ava because of their health conditions and their chronic health conditions. So I found that to be a really interesting look at it. This is YA as well and sapphic, and I think this is going to go into B just because I enjoyed it, but nothing really stood out all that much to me. And then finally, we've got Chain Gang All Stars, which is going straight up into S tier because this was absolutely incredible. This is a very interesting look at the US prison system and the way that people kind of consume violence for entertainment and the kind of addiction that forms in its own way. I found it to be a very fascinating and heartbreaking take on this, and the characters that we stuck with and explored was really interesting. We had people that were both in these games where they are prisoners and are fighting to the death to the chance to be released from prison early, or to be just released from prison in general. And then we've also got people that are the game makers or people that are just fans of the games or protesting against the games because they have family members that are imprisoned and have been a part of this. It's really interesting and absolutely devastating. I did not expect the ending at all, but it is just hands down one of the best books I have read in 2025. But it's very heavy in the middle and very light at the top and the bottom, but overall I think it's a really good reading year. I think this was very fun to do, if a little bit annoying with this system. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this week's video. I would love it if you stuck around, so make sure you like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.